Hey, what's up, Closer fam? It's me, Plus Ultraman, and today I'm very happy to be getting back to the continuation of a long overdue series. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering why the name of the series has changed. Simply put, I hadn't really considered that the scenario I set out to do had transformed into something else. So in interest of helping this scenario come to a satisfying conclusion, I'll redub this timeline, What If Master Shen Turned Good? And at some point, probably way down the line, I will start What If Goku was raised by Master Shen? With that out of the way, we can jump into our quick recap. When we last left off, the two remaining members of the Crane School decided to team up with the disciples of Master Roshi in order to defeat King Piccolo once and for all. Unfortunately, the quietly bubbling rage of Son Goku threw a wrench in the ambush effort, but thankfully the intervention of the Guardian of Earth helped seal the demon away. We return to this timeline, now. Tien, tired and battle damaged, approaches the God of Earth and his attendant and asks them what exactly had just happened, where he's given an explanation of everything. At this, Tien asks Kami would allow them to revive those who had died in the battle with King Piccolo. He's however shocked when Kami and Mr. Popo laugh, and Kami explains that he had already planned to revive the brave warriors. He then has Mr. Popo collect all the bodies, and in the next instant the group is transported to the lookout. There, the Dragon Balls are gathered, and the titular wish to resurrect everyone killed by King Piccolo or his minions is made. The Z Fighters then begin to celebrate their victory, all but the serious Master Shen and the stoic Mercenary Tao. But if one were to look extremely closely, they would notice a very small smirk on their faces. They were proud of their victory, they just weren't showing it. Kami then feels an explanation is in order, and gives the history of he and King Piccolo. He goes on to declare that with Piccolo sealed, the Earth was completely safe for right now, but there was one thing. He then calls Masters Roshi and Shen to stand in front of everyone, and announces that due to his old age, he's preparing to step down as the Guardian of Earth. As of now, Shen and Roshi were the two best candidates to become the new Guardians. Though they were not the strongest there, the two had shown keen wisdom and unified each other's groups in interest of the greater good. This spoke to Kami that the two had the foundations to become good guardians, but power could come next. Hearing this seemingly undeserved praise, Shen adamantly rejects this idea and tries to inform Kami of his past, but is cut off by the god. Though Shen's heart hadn't always been the purest, recently someone's influence had led to his heart's purification. No, it was not a complete and total shift by any means, but the small amount of good that had been in Shen's heart had grown exponentially. Shen then cast a wary glance at Goku, who after being told of who Kami was, just beamed back at him. Still rejecting this, Shen then claims that Roshi should be the new Guardian, but Kami doesn't agree to this, seemingly already having a bias towards Shen for some reason. At this, Master Roshi gets an idea and asks Mr. Popo for a ride somewhere. Kami tells Popo that it is granted, and the two disappear only to reappear a few moments later with fortune teller Baba in tow. Roshi then whispers into her ear and the woman huffs before going through with her brother's wish, and on the lookout appears Master Mutaito. The old master looks flustered and discombobulated and looks around curiously, trying to figure out where he was, but he's brought out of the stupor when Roshi and Shen bow to him, and seeing this, their students do so as well. Roshi then gives Mutaito a quick rundown on what had happened, and explains that he felt that he would be the best candidate to help decide who the new Guardian should be. He then yelps as he feels Master Mutaito's fist collide off his and Shen's skulls, and the old master gruffly informs that they were both idiots. Apparently, one of Roshi's students in the afterlife, Gohan, had informed Mutaito that Shen and Roshi acted more as enemies than rivals. He expected the two of them to get over their little squabbles and come together after his death and rebuild the school after King Piccolo had been sealed away. The master then continued to berate his students for a long time before finally greeting Kami and is regarded warmly by the god. But then Shen was the one to sheepishly peep up and again asked Mutaito for a straight answer on who he felt would be a better guardian of Earth, he or Roshi, and the old martial arts master rubbed at his chin for a while. He then looked to Kami and very confidently spoke. "You should have more than one guardian from now on, Master Kami. Neither of these two are fit to be fully in charge. For example, Shen is too stiff, too unrelenting. His mind is always thinking of the future. He is never able to relax. While Roshi is the exact opposite. He's too relaxed and lives in the moment, slacking off on his training for his pursuits." Roshi and Shen look ashamed to hear their old teacher speak their flaws into light, but they couldn't deny them. But then Mutaito spoke again. "But that said, everything requires balance. So if the two could become co-guardians, then they could cover for the weaknesses of the other and be stronger for it." Hearing this, Kami began to chuckle. A co-guardianship is exactly what he wanted from the beginning, but something told him that if he had been the one who suggested it, the two wouldn't have accepted it the same way they did from hearing it from their own master. But now, he had an even better idea. "Actually, Mutaito, I will be electing 3 new guardians. You are to be revived and you will train alongside Shen and Roshi. Yes, you've been dead many years, but I think I'll make an exception of that rule of Shenron's for you." Mutaito was shocked again and looked at Kami as if he had sprouted another head, but the others on the lookout began to cheer, and hearing this, he soon began to laugh himself. After this, I think we can skip 3 years forward and see what happens in the training of Roshi and the 2 other potential guardians. They go through almost the exact same training Goku had in canon, but there is much less importance put on the aspect of combat, and more is put on the duties of the guardians. They are taught abilities like the Kai Kai, Kami's instantaneous movement technique, telepathy, and Kami's ability to monitor the Earth closely from the lookout. And Roshi and Mutaito are even forced to learn how to fly at one point. After the 3 years, here are the parallels for our new guardians. As for their students, well, even without their masters, I feel they would still train, and since in this timeline the group has a history of training together, they do so over these 3 years as well. So we'll get parallels for them as well now. Also remember that training together would do wonders for everybody's games. Having nothing to do after these 3 years, the group entered the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, and after an amazing battle between Tien and Goku in the finals, Goku was able to finally be crowned the world champion. Chi-Chi likely shows up to fight Goku as in canon, and their fight goes pretty much the same, ending with a proposal. But while celebrating the festivities, they are interrupted by Kami, Popo, and the 3 new guardians. The gods explain that Shen and Mutaito have had an idea, and that they all end up agreeing to it once they heard it. To avoid the kind of destruction and devastation caused by King Piccolo from ever happening again, they wanted to build up another strong force of fighters here on Earth. The way this would work is that by passing a certain trial, a pure-hearted warrior will be allowed to go and train with a stronger master. For example, Korra's Tower will be one of the trials, and Korin will be one of the masters. This idea would be so effective because it's preemptive instead of reactive. Goku, being the most curious of the group, asks what this has to do with any of them, and Roshi is more than happy to elaborate. There were 5 warriors from this current group that had been deemed worthy to train at the highest level there was. Literally. Goku, Tien, Yamcha, and Krillin, as well as Chaozu, were being invited to train on Kami's lookout. Shen then steps up to explain why Tao hadn't been invited. His heart was much purer than what it had once been, but there was still so much blood in his hands, as much as this was the plot calling the kettle black. Other than that, Shen wanted to make him one of the masters. He would be training the lowest level warriors, and if they were able to pass his trial, they'll be allowed to climb Korin's Tower, and beyond that, they'd be allowed to climb up onto the lookout. Tao stops and considers this, and ponders everything, before sighing and deciding it was better to be with the Goody Two-Shoes than against them. Besides, he couldn't say that assassination was as fun as it used to be. He was getting too old for it, so he would do as his brother asked of him. Now, we'll skip forward 5 years. Not only have our main group of Z-Fighters gotten stronger, but they are a bigger group than in canon, and have stayed in contact way better than in canon as well. Goku was able to convince Chi-Chi not only to allow him to continue his training, but also to continue her own as well as part of this Protect the Earth initiative. I'd like to implement a filler scene to justify this. In episode 202 of the Dragon Ball Z anime, Chi-Chi tells Gohan of her first date with Goku as kids. During this date, they spent the entire day fighting. This is significant because she speaks on this memory fondly. If we are able to make this scene canon to this timeline, it allows us to instill a love of fighting in Chi-Chi, since it's something that brings her and Goku together. It's also something that's going to allow her to protect Gohan better. So, she decides to continue her training, but has to take a lot of time off to recover after their child Gohan is born. Gohan is also born to a family where Chi-Chi sees martial arts as a viable career option, possibly convincing Goku to maintain his World Martial Arts Tournament Championship to help support their family finances. Another big change happens with Tien. For one, he lives in the city now. For another, he's married to Launch. And most importantly, he now has a child of his very own. Goku's influence on him through this timeline has made him a bit more open to Launch's advances, and after seeing Goku and Chi-Chi settle down to a relationship where training is at the forefront and the child is brought into the world, Tien is fired up to follow the lead of his rival, and the rest is history. That said, I'm making a poll in the iCard for you guys. What gender should this kid be? And be sure to suggest names down in the comments. As for the other new members of the Z-Fighters, we see characters like Nam joining the ranks and reaching Korin's Tower level. King Choppa had also reached that level, though most of his students were struggling to get past Tao's trial. Pomput surprisingly had been deemed worthy as well, and was currently training under Tao as well. And there apparently was an up-and-coming warrior, only a little older than Goku, that was currently trying to climb Korin's Tower, after he had been approached as well. Finally, in age 761, a big party is held to celebrate the achievement of the up-and-coming fighters, and just about everyone is gathered. The Guardians are unable to make it, as Kami had warned them that he felt an impending threat approaching. During the party, it at some point devolves in sparring between Goku and Tien, while Chi-Chi and Launch yell at the two, and the entire group just enjoys themselves. It's truly very peaceful and enjoyable. That is, until the biggest power anyone on Earth had ever felt was approaching them, and soon, they saw the culprit. A long-haired man lands on the lawn of Capsule Corp, and with the device on his face begins to look at everyone, before focusing on Goku. He whistled, claiming Kakarot had gotten stronger than he figured he would, and that he could understand why he had so much trouble taking over this planet. The locals weren't pushovers compared to a baby Saiyan as weak as Kakarot was. He then goes into his entire explanation of who and what Goku was, and this shocks everyone, but they kinda accept it. As strong as he was, Goku couldn't be completely normal. Raditz then tells Goku that he'd have to join him and help the other Saiyans to conquer planets. But Goku instantly rejects this and takes off his waiting clothing, telling Raditz that they defeat him instead. Everyone at the party drops into their battle stances, while Goku and Tien tell Chi-Chi and Launch to get their kids and the weaker or more inexperienced fighters out of harm's way. Speaking of, where's Yajirobe? When the battle starts, Goku is the one who is counted on to do the most damage, and so everyone else just tries to distract Raditz, but this doesn't fare well for most of them. A solar flare from Tien is enough to stun Raditz long enough for the entire army to gang up and beat down on him, but this proves ineffective when he lets out a huge burst of energy that pushes them all away. Palmput, being the weakest, is knocked through one of the walls of Capsule Corp and now sports a terrible burn, but he's just barely alive. While Nam and King Choppa are also blasted away, where they're able to stay in pretty much fighting condition, but they are just barely in the fight now. This reduces the fight to just the main Z fighters, and Goku, finally swallowing his pride enough to go try and grab Raditz's tail, gets it once Chaozu gets him in a psychic hold. Here, Goku does not let him go at first, but Raditz makes his plea of leaving if he's released, and I would still allow Goku to release him. The fight calms down, as Raditz actually does consider leaving. Even though he was stronger than all his opponents, he was far outnumbered, and at this point, exhausted and beaten to an extreme degree. He begins to lift off into the air to fly away, deciding he called Vegeta and Nappa to tell them the problem, but ends up getting a rude awakening. As the Z-Fighters try to recover from the battle, Roshi and Shen appear at Capsule Corp and apologize for being late, but are thankful no one had died in the battle. Goku and the others try to fill them in, but they already know what had transpired and tell them the plan to bolster the Earth's forces seemed to have worked brilliantly based off this first threat. But then, the power from Raditz they sense begins to come back, and soon he lands, holding his scouter in his hand and almost shaking pale in fear. He looks to Goku and tells him that they're in trouble. But that, Plus Ultra fans, will be leaving this timeline off for now. Thanks so much for being patient on this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to join my Discord, follow me on Twitter, and all the other things. And as always, go beyond Plus Ultra. See you guys next time.